Welcome to the Feral Mammy Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Feral Mammy, the podcast where we talk honestly about pregnancy, birth, babies, and the wild and wonderful chaos of motherhood. I'm Aoife Lennon, your host, IBCLC lactation consultant, antenatal and hypnobirthing educator, and the voice behind Bumps and Banya. And around here, we believe mothers deserve real information, real support, and conversations that don't whisper around the edges of motherhood. We say the quiet bits out loud. In fact, sometimes we shout them. Today's episode is all about infant sleep, something that can feel confusing and a little overwhelming at times for parents. And I am delighted to be joined by Majella Mordaunt, founder of Tiny Tummies and Little Dreamers. Majella is an IBCLC, holistic sleep coach, AIM, infant massage instructor, and reflexologist. So lots and lots of strings to her bow. And Majella supports families in building healthy relationships with sleep and reframing what normal sleep is. And she definitely is not a sleep trainer. Hello, Majella, and thank you so much for coming on. How are you today?
Good, Aoife. Thanks a million. Thanks for having me. It really is. It's a lovely opportunity to come and talk about normal sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like getting it all out there,
Mm.
around, what is normal. So many parents, expect a baby that sleeps like they do, and that's
Yeah.
not that way that babies come. So,
Oh,
look, let's jump
yeah.
straight in.
And I
So,
think you
Majella,
probably hit there.
yeah, no, go on ahead there.
No, I think you probably hit the nail on the head there that we expect babies to sleep like us in the first place. And that's where a lot of the problem starts, really. So that makes sense
Yeah.
because babies aren't wired to sleep like us in the beginning when they come.
No, oh God, no, absolutely not. And the sooner that we just accept that, the easier that it'll
Yeah,
be. But tell me
100%.
this, Majella, sleep advice online often treats babies like they are broken if they wake up at night time. So, from your perspective, can you describe what biologically normal infant sleep looks like?
Yep. So I think like coming back to the very first point there that babies don't sleep like us. And that's where I think most of that problem starts with is that it's not rooted in what's biologically normal for children or babies. So when babies are born, they're first of all they're kind of their clocks are reversed. So day is night and night is day. So they're awake a lot at night. And babies aren't born with circadian rhythm, which I think is surprising to a lot of new parents, is that they don't know when nighttime starts. That needs to emerge, that needs to be built in. And that doesn't start until they're somewhere around the 3 months mark that starts to emerge. And then on top of that, babies' sleep cycles are much shorter than ours. So they're around 45, 60 minutes is what you'll get a baby to sleep. Some babies can link them quite quickly, but some babies will wake at the end of each sleep cycle. And that is huge because ours is, when an adult sleep cycle and around preschool it starts to mature, but that's around 90 minutes, maybe a bit with it. But if you put a newborn baby with a mature sleep cycle, and we're not supposed to wake for every 90 minutes, and we can link those sleep cycles quite easily. And then you have this tiny human who needs you at the end of every sleep cycle, sometimes, depending on their temperament. That makes it really, really hard then to kind of match those up. And I feel like we don't talk about that enough, that actually there's probably not enough talk about what normal infant sleep is, other than, I know when I had mine, it was definitely you get the kind of scaremongering, oh, wait till the baby arrives, then you'll never sleep another day in your life. It's like, well, let's explore that then. Like, what is normal sleep? Is it that the baby should be sleeping through the night? And then that then feeds into something's wrong with my baby and let's pathologize sleep because they're not sleeping through the night at X month or X week or, that kind of. So I think it starts from there that we don't really know what normal baby sleep should look like. And if we actually pull it back and look at, well, yes, it's going to be a mismatch between what adult sleep is and what baby sleep is because they're very different. Does that, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and like this idea of responding to your child at nighttime, like you're almost told that you're, you
yeah,
know, creating a rod for your own back is one of the many phrases I've
Yeah,
heard. Your
yeah,
bad habit, but it's not a
bad
bad
habits.
habit to respond to your child. Like all
Oh,
of the neuroscience, the all of the around neurobiology and things like that tells us that
yep,
responding to your child actually creates really good habits later on.
yep, yep. So,
Like, why did we start selling this idea that babies are going to be like these little master manipulators in their sleep?
yeah.
You know,
Like a lot of what fills through on the bad habits, a lot of that is it's like from years and centuries old of where the original kind of sleep training idea came. And most of that dialogue, we'd still hear bits of it. So that the rod for your own back, don't cuddle that baby, you'll spoil them, you'll spoil this time. And I've heard that said about babies day one, day two inside the maternity hospitals. I mean, you're looking at this tiny human who knows nothing other than you. And these poor parents think I need to start the routine because, and it's no fault of theirs, it's what they've heard. It goes back to, we don't talk about what's normal sleep and but that, God, if I don't start creating these habits or these routines, that I'll give my baby bad habits. I really am of the stance that there is no such thing as a bad habit when it comes to a baby. I feel that it is a habit is a habit. We all develop them. We all have habits. But like for me, a connotation of a bad habit is, you're smoking too much, you're drinking, or you're yo, those kind of things. But when it comes to baby sleep and babies, like there's no such thing as a bad habit. There's a certain way that they prefer to fall asleep and a certain way that they prefer to comfort. That becomes a problem when it's no longer sustainable for the parents. So it's not so much that this is a problem or a habit. It's fine. It's not, it's their way that they know to comfort. It's the way that they've learned to regulate their system. And the first way that we know to regulate our systems is with our parents, that proximity to our parents. We come out, we've into this brand new world. We know nothing other than our mothers, and our instincts are to find our mothers. We're hardwired to be close to them, to find that as our safe space. And that's where that regulation bit then starts, that babies need to be close to us to regulate. And they ride on our nervous system until we show them a way that this is how you actually find your way to calm. So the co-regulation bit is huge. And that's where often where we come back to working with is, you need to co-regulate these babies to build that ability that they have then to bring themselves to calm. And then from that calm, they can learn, oh, these are the stepping stones to how I can now become that independent person that my mother and father want me to be. That it's not like this, phew, off you go, and I can force independence on you.
I just think it's wild that, it's like, oh, you can't let babies do that. Before I go to bed every night, Majella, I take two magnesium tablets. I drink a cup of rooibos tea. I go to bed with socks that are outside my pajamas so that my pajamas can't roll up my legs in the night. And
Yeah.
I have what my husband calls a cock block blanket, but is actually a weighted blanket. And I have amazing sleep. Like sleep is for me is something really worth investing in. I love sleep. Like I get excited about the idea of going to bed at night.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yet, a baby that just needs a little attention or affection is that's considered a bad
Yeah.
habit. And I'd go even further to say actually mentioned this at the Alki conference. There was someone was talking about infant sleep and what's normal and things like that at the
Mm.
conference, and I was saying one of my sons said to me, like my boys are 7 and almost 9. They're still very, they
Yeah.
sleep independently, but
Yeah.
you know they still have their little habits for
Still
going
the
to sleep.
moments. Yeah.
And they said to me one night that at one stage, Kieran, my older boy, was coming into us every single night. And I was like,
Yeah.
Kieran, why can't you just sleep in your own bed? And he said, because, Mammy, it's lonely. And I said, nobody, it's not. You have
Mm.
to sleep in your own bed. And he said, but Mammy, you sleep with Daddy every night.
Yeah.
And I just
Yeah.
thought, do you know what? When Rory is away, I don't sleep the same.
Yeah.
I wake up and I'm like, there's an emptiness in this bed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're expecting these infants who are so, like, their brains are,
So
and it's
vulnerable.
going to take 25 years to
Yeah. This is
adapt
it.
to the world,
Yeah.
to do something that we actually struggle with ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. And like in a lot of the globe, co-sleeping and family units sleeping together is very, very normal. It's, I suppose, the Western side of the world, we have very much these ideas that babies are supposed to sleep in cots, are supposed to sleep in independent, are supposed to sleep in their own room. And even that, coming back to it, and I think parents look at me sometimes and I go, safe sleep guidelines, we're supposed to, room share for the first 6 months to a year, depending on what part of the western side of the world you live in. But then that's not the target. That 6 months, they need to move you into your own room. That's the point by which you need to make sure that the baby is in proximity for this length of time. It doesn't mean that at this time you need to now move them into their own room. Babies actually continue, and into toddlers. And I love working with toddlers because I think there's so much room there for, they're misunderstood a lot of the time. But their sleep needs don't become, now you can talk, now you can walk, now all of a sudden you're independent and you can sleep on your own. Their needs are still very, very immature when it comes to being able to regulate themselves to sleep. And it's that bit, it's the co-regulation bit. And I think that's massive in that people don't seem to understand that you said it there, it's into our 20s before we're able to, that part of our brain that helps us to come to calm, we're well into our 20s before that's developed. So why are we expecting these tiny humans who are so vulnerable and can't make their way to food themselves, let alone anything else, to go, you know what, I'm awake in the middle of the night, but I'm not hungry and my nappy is dry, so I'm fine. And it comes back to, when you explained about your setup for going to sleep, like, if you didn't have your pajama legs tucked into your socks, they'd probably ride up your legs and irritate the hell out of you. Why do we not see that babies have certain things that irritate them the same as we have different emotions that, it's not just about feeding and the nappy and being comfortable and now going to sleep, now go to bed and go to sleep and I'll see you in the morning. It's, when you break it down, it sounds daft, but it's years long of, I suppose, when you go
Yeah.
back to where sleep training originated from, and that idea that we put babies on a schedule, you feed them every 3 hours, don't pick them up and don't give them too much affection because then they learn that that's what they need. So let's like remove it. So the behaviorist side of things, remove that thing that they're looking for and they will learn to do without it. Well, they don't. They actually just continue to look for it, but learn that it's not coming. So, you know, yeah,
And it's actually
it's
really
huge.
sad. Like that, it really, really does upset me. Um, because,
Mm,
babies are hardwired to express their needs.
yeah,
And I suppose in my work as an IBCLC, when you go out and you meet a parent, and you're probably the same, when you meet a parent and they're talking about the baby crying, I'm like, well, that's just a communication. They're communicating a
yeah,
need to you. And it's, babies do cry, and sometimes you won't know exactly what it is, but as
yeah.
long as you are aiming to respond to
Yeah.
their
And it's
communication,
learning,
even
isn't
without
it?
knowing what you're learn. Yeah, exactly. And
Learning,
eventually
yeah.
you begin to differentiate between what the cry is for I'm tired,
Yeah,
or I'm overstimulated, or I'm hungry, or there's
yeah.
poo all up my back, or
Yeah.
you know,
And you can see
and I
that between
think
parents, even, how quickly mom gets there. Mom gets there very quickly because we're hardwired to attune to our babies very quickly. And you can go, oh, that cry is that. And I know I definitely do it with my partner, where we go, he's actually looking for this. And he's like, how do you just know the cry? And they eventually get there. There's learning on the job to do as well. But yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's huge. And there's massive brain shifts going on for everyone in the family when a new baby arrives, and
yeah,
throughout their whole childhood, really, those changes are constantly kind of
yeah,
evolving. Um, Going back to like breastfeeding, I suppose, because I have such a gra for the boobs, like
yeah, yeah.
such a gra for them. Um, but it oh my God, it makes my blood boil when people look at night feeds as something
Yeah.
that babies don't need. Nutritionally speaking, once they get to 6 months, they don't need. Yeah, and you're like, okay, that's not true, first of all, but
Yeah.
also we don't
It's
only
much, much
feed
more
for
than feet. Yeah.
nutrition, and it's often, like, oh, this is the problem. This is what you need to fix. But night
Yeah.
feeds are really important for both babies
Yeah.
and breastfeeding, and also and this is the thing that I think a lot of people miss out on, is that breastfeeding actually supports better sleep for the family.
Yeah. Huge. Yeah.
Um, and
It is.
like
Yeah.
the prolactin levels rising at nighttime, the levels of the cholecystokinins in the milk making everyone a bit more sleepy, and yet we're taught, this is a crutch.
Yeah.
It would you and speaking of crutches, this whole thing of like feeding to sleep, do you think that's something that we really need to worry about, this idea of crutches?
No. No, I don't, but I think it is definitely something that's out there. And I like it's you say boils your blood, it boils my blood so I've ended up kind of naturally moving into working a lot with usually older babies and toddlers that are
Yeah.
the mums are still breastfeeding. They don't want to stop breastfeeding. But a lot of the rhetoric out there is that you have to remove breastfeeding to improve night sleep. It's not true. It's just simply not true. And we have the research now that supports that actually babies feeding beyond 6 months and, 6 months to 12 months and beyond that babies breastfeeding in that is still very normal. Babies waking is still very normal. And actually, whether babies are breastfed or bottle fed, they're still waking in and around the same amount of times as, each other. The difference there is how the parents end up supporting these babies back to sleep. So overall, babies that of parents that are breastfeeding, they usually end up getting a little bit more sleep, or in and around the same amount of sleep, because babies that are bottle fed don't always take the feeds at night, but they're still up and they need other ways to parent them back to sleep. So it really kind of, I feel for those mums when they come. And I've met mums that have stopped breastfeeding because they didn't think that they'd be able to, that this was the only way. And you will meet the mums as well that will say, yep, stop breastfeeding and it worked for me. And in that, you're
Yeah.
kind of wondering, what is it there? Is it the proximity? Is it, but for the most part, removing breastfeeding isn't going to solve your sleep issues. And the reason being is that it's not just about breastfeeding. It's not just about the nutrition or the milk. It's about the comfort. It's about the proximity. It's about the regulation. And a lot of the time that comes down to the child's temperament. So if you have a baby that's chilled out and on a very, very primitive level, if they're able to go, you know what, I slip between a sleep cycle, I'm just going to suck my thumb and turn over and go to sleep. That baby's going to do that whether they are a bottle feeder or a breastfeeder. It's not the breastfeeding bit that's waking them up. It's their temperament that, you know what, I am actually a little bit like, what's going on here? I need to check in with you and just need that little bit of assistance to regulate my own little nervous system. And the fact that you breastfeed is a bonus. It's like a magic trick because it's got all the goodness that help both of you to go back to sleep faster. Where it becomes, I suppose, where breastfeeding becomes not a problem, but I suppose unsustainable for parents is when it becomes the multiple kind of, you're like the all-night milk bar. And
Yeah.
that often you'd see it coincide with development leaps or with separation anxiety and those kind of things. But again, that's not the breastfeeding there. It's the breastfeeding is the comfort. But what's causing those little wake ups? Is it that they're nervous because they're going through a period of separation anxiety? Or is it that, their sleep pressure isn't enough? So they're actually not tired enough and staying asleep between sleep cycles is
Yeah.
harder. Or is it that, I've gone back to work actually, and now I want a little bit more time with mommy because I'm in creche all during the day, and actually this is the way I get. So it's not so much the breastfeeding that actually ends up the problem. It's usually the bit that actually helps you kind of ride the tide of the night wakes. The mums that are bottle feeding, they're still up at night. It's just different ways that they've found to get their babies back to sleep. Does that kind of answer where
Like
you're
it
going with?
really does, because even, I don't have to go any distance from my children for them to decide they really, that they've really
Yeah,
missed me. Um, it doesn't seem to happen with their dad though. Odd that. Uh,
yeah,
but like say I'm away for a night and then I come
yeah,
home, they will literally cling to me. It'll be like,
yeah,
let's watch a movie, ma'am, and they might land into the bed the next morning for lots and lots of snuggles. And again,
yeah,
like my husband's away golfing now, like last night and
yeah,
tonight, and when he comes home, I know I'll be swinging out of him. It's
yeah.
so no, it's
It's
such
super simple.
normal behavior.
Yeah,
But I get it when you are the tired, and not just tired,
yeah,
but like sleep deprived parent,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you're at the end of your tether. It's so
yeah. It is.
it's just so hard. Like, what
Sleep
would
is
you say
hard,
to
and
those parents who are just they're so exhausted?
Yeah. I think it's a lot of it is normalizing sleep, first of all, as in it is, and it goes, I know we'll go back to that first, but it really is a thing. I mean, I've been there personally. I see it professionally, but I've been there personally in that I always say that my first two boys were so different to the second two boys in the sense that, but it was my mindset change. So if nothing changed, my first little boy was actually a typical sleeper, normal, typical sleeper, but I found him really hard. But that was my circumstances in that I was on my own in the first 3 months because my husband was gone. And like normal sleep is hard. To say it's like, it's somebody telling you breastfeeding is easy. It's like, breastfeeding journeys are hard and they all have their own little ways that are hard. Normal sleep is hard. And then when you have sleep that isn't typical, which was my second boy, we passed him between us for the first 7 months of his life. Oh my God, like it was torture, and it actually was torture. And I don't think anybody outside of us knew how hard it actually was. We just got on with it and passed because it's like you had to look like you were coping. I wasn't able to kind of just leave him down and cry and like I just couldn't do that. And then you're trying to do everything right. He shouldn't come into your bed. He should be sleeping in his own cot. So every time he'd go, the little gyroscope would lower and he'd wake again. It was just torture. But my mindset changed. I actually found Lindsay Hookwea on my third boy, and she just turned my whole world around. And it was mindset. It was actually the mindset of knowing what's normal, what babies can actually do, and your expectations meeting in the middle and going, oh, well, this is actually normal. And then looking at all the other bits about what can I do to actually maximize and optimize sleep during the day so that the night times are a little bit easier. And that sometimes is looking at your own sleep hygiene, which I don't think we sell enough to parents. I think, we put it all on the baby and their sleep needs to be fixed. But sometimes our own sleep hygiene needs to be looked at. Does the baby go to bed at like, say, 9, 10 o'clock and you stay up for another 2 hours and I understand that too. You want your own downtime, you want time that you're not parenting,
Yeah.
but this is a season as well. Do we just kind of, okay, for these few weeks where things are a bit rough, do we rein it in and actually maximize our own sleep there and get a few hours before the baby wakes and you go through the rhythm of the night? Or who are those people that you can pull on? And, those people that you can actually pull on and there's no conditions to where you can kind of go, I'm actually hitting the floor here. I need half an hour to just not parent or just lie down and close my eyes. And the other spin of it is, feeding is one bit of, like we said there, that there's babies that are waking, not all those babies fed when they went to sleep. So like, what's the other half doing? Can he get up and share? Because that doesn't always happen. It does in a lot of relationships, but it doesn't always happen. That
Yeah.
it's seen that, and possibly more with the breastfeeding because, feeding is mom's thing to do. But like in any situation, like there's definitely, can I lie in the morning and you get up and take the child at whatever, 5, 6 o'clock, and I have a few hours there, and all of a sudden the day seems a little bit more manageable when you've had, because you can run on very little sometimes. When you are running on nothing sleep wise, half an hour can just really just boost the system enough to kind of go, okay, I can face something now and I can actually make a rational thought. you know
Yeah, and I suppose as well, like so many babies only want to sleep when they are either in very close proximity or
yeah,
like in contact with a parent.
yeah,
Um, what would you say to parents around that, kind of reframing, like you say, our thoughts around that's not again wrong, that's developmentally normal to hold your baby to sleep and to hold
yeah,
your baby while they sleep.
yeah. This I think is really hard for parents to kind of get their head around. And again, it's that kind of mainstream thought of you're creating the rod for your own back and you're creating the bad habits. And what I say to parents is, if it's working for you, so like enjoy the contact naps. There's nothing wrong with them. There actually isn't. And I've heard people say to me, it's not restorative if they're not sleeping in their cot. Naps are, short naps aren't restorative, or naps on the go aren't good, or, all this nonsense. None of it is actually based on any evidence. It's just mainstream kind of nonsense that's kind of filtered through that we've hooked onto. But the fact of the matter is, we can't micromanage what a baby's brain does. If they need a certain amount of X sleep, once the opportunity is given for them to sleep, their brain micromanages the kind of sleep that they need and they take it. Babies sleep longer in proximity, so it's really, really normal that a baby in a cot nap or a baby in a buggy nap or whatever will sleep for shorter, because that link in the sleep cycles, if their sleep cycles are only 45 minutes, when you're in proximity and you're in your safe little space of up here in mommy's chest, you don't have to do anything. I'm safe. My food is right there. I don't have to go searching for anything or call out and need it. So do you know what? I'll actually continue to sleep for another little bit. So it's really, really normal. Contact naps, there's nothing wrong with them until they become a problem for yourself. If like, that sustainability bit again. And again, if that's, oh, it's the only time I get stuff done, it's reframing that and looking at, well, is there other times of the day that I can I take one or two of those contact naps and enjoy them and just actually enjoy them? Kind of sling nap work. Slings are fabulous. They're like baby wearing is amazing and used in so much of the globe, but it's kind of, I suppose we are getting more and more used to it here. But they're amazing
Yeah.
for doing everything. Oh my God, it's just the shopping. I was definitely late to the show there where doing the shopping, where you'd be trying to get a baby to linger in the trolley for long enough to get around the shop and do sling is just amazing. Oh my God, like it's just life changing. But I think it's dropped the guilt about the fact that I'm enjoying contact napping with my baby. Of course you are. You're supposed to. It's the way you're hardwired and the way they're hardwired. Do you know, it's funny, my husband said this to me recently with my fourth boy now. I still lie beside him for him to fall asleep, and more often than not, Dad comes and takes over because he does a bit of silly buggering for me. But my first boy, like we've pictures of trying to get my first boy into bed because he should be sleeping independently and not need us to lie beside him to go to sleep. And we've photos of him like peeking out from behind the door. And sure, we'd end up going back down with him again anyway. But like what we did to ourselves, what we deprived ourselves of just, and it was my husband said it to me, lying beside the 3-year-old now as he's nodding off to sleep, it doesn't take long. It really, really doesn't. But it's so enjoyable. And it's like we did ourselves out of that with the first boy, trying to kind of fit it all into what was expected to be normal, and it's when you kind of step back and go, he's not going to need it forever. They all sleep, the others all sleep independently now, they go to sleep themselves, to bed themselves. They don't need it forever. So that's what I would say to parents is enjoy the contact nap if it's working for you. Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember my mom saying to me, I was still in the hospital. My mom's a midwife, was a midwife, is a midwife. I think she'll always be a midwife.
Yeah, always
But
midwife, yeah.
she said to me on my first day when I was, maybe it was the second day, and I was bawling and like, I'd had no sleep myself. And I
Yeah.
was like, Mommy, please just tell me it gets easier. And she says, Aoife, parenthood is all about survival. And we
Mm.
all mess our kids up in our own special way. She may not have said mess. She said, but it won't be in these really early days, and it definitely won't be in the ways that you think. And it's stuck to me
Yeah.
since then. And I say, like keep your expectations at rock bottom, and you'll always be impressed. And all you
Yeah.
have to do is survive these years. And if you get to enjoy as much of it as
Yeah.
possible, by doing that, then
Yeah.
yeah, like that is really what it's all about.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I think we spend so much of, and we do, like, I actually feel for the mums. And look, I suppose hindsight now, I can look back and I've enjoyed the last two more in that respect of, like, I enjoyed my boys, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the first two, but it felt more like a pressure of I have to do and I have to look like I'm coping and I have to look like I'm getting it right and whatever that expectation was built from, but that is there that, I need to look like I'm doing it all right. And none of us are getting it. There's no such thing as perfect. There isn't, there is no such thing as perfect. And we're all kind of learning on the job a bit.
Definitely. Is there a point at which you think parents should actually worry about sleep?
Insofar as what it's doing for their family, the functioning of their family. It's when
Yeah.
it's not sustainable for them. So yeah, when they're at the point of, if it's working for you and you're all getting some kind of sleep, whatever that looks like, if that's 4 in the bed or 5 in the bed or what, if that's working for you and you're getting sleep and sleep is that's your family's functioning sleep, that's okay. It'll change as things, but as the years go on, we do know that children's sleep starts to lengthen, the wake up start to reduce as they get older. And again, that's, my 9-year-old would still pop in every now and then if he's anxious about something or there's something going on. It's really, really normal. It's like we have our ways of coping with things, but we can voice them and kiddies can't. But I suppose when does it become a problem is if it's no longer functioning well for you. Like if you as a family unit are struggling with sleep where sleep is you're like, okay, I'm at crisis point, and not even that, but ideally getting it before you're at crisis point, but sleep is no longer working for you, where you're not actually able to sustain the way that you're not getting sleep from the way the sleep is looking. Then I would say you're looking then at where do I get support, but where do I get support that fits me? And I think that's where a lot of the mummies that I end up working with, and I think that's why with the breastfeeding I have ended up working with them that way, is because they don't want to do the sleep training. They don't want to do the non-responsive. I've spent so much of this small person's life being there, supporting them, allowing them to, and now I have to do this non-responsive. But there are still people who don't realize that there is an alternative to sleep training. Can you fix sleep, Aoife? No, I don't think you can fix sleep. I don't think it's something you fix. I think it's something that you support and that you need to figure out. And a lot of that comes down to the individuality of that baby. Because, like, if I look at my 4 boys, if I was to take them and put them all into one schedule, I'd be like driven demented because none of the 4 of them would fit into the one schedule. So it's just unrealistic to think that we can fit them all into one little box. But it's looking at that baby and how can we create a plan that supports that family, but that with that baby and what their little needs are. So when does it become problematic, I think, is when you find, what, this is no longer working for me. Feeding to sleep no longer works for me, or rocking them to sleep no longer works for me, or the co-sleeping bit, I now actually need my space and I want to start moving them out into their own space, whatever that looks like. And that's not, I suppose, so that's not going to happen today or tomorrow. Like if you have a small person who's used to your body, he's used to sleeping beside you, and now you're going, this is your room, kiddo, and I want you to move out there. It's not going to happen like overnight. There's no magic trick up anybody's sleeves that's going to, so it's a gradual process and it's helping them get there, so that it's the responsive way.
And can you suggest some ways that gently do support better sleep? Like I'm a big fan of Lindsay Hookway as well, and I really like
Mm,
her theories around like habit stacking and things like that, which I suppose is what I do
mm,
for myself.
yeah, yeah. Yes, and I think it's like it's massive, and starting that from a young age, habit stacking in any kind of and again, it's what's sustainable for you. Because if you're happy rocking a baby to sleep, but then for the next person, rocking a baby to sleep is just like, oh my God, I can't do this. It just drives me, or we're here for, then that's not going to work for you. But maybe singing, tapping, bum patting and shushing or whatever else it is, but habit stacking in as many of those kind of sleep associations, for want of a better word of putting them, in on top of every time you breastfeed or every time you put your baby to sleep, that you have a few of them, that then when they become unsustainable and there's one you want to remove, that you have other ones to fall back on. Or you've ones to fall back on when you want dad or somebody else to support the baba to sleep and you're not there, or you want to be able to pull back from it. But again, it's understanding that that takes time because you are their favorite person. You are their default parent. You always rock them to sleep. You always feed them to sleep, or whatever it is. It's not that you can't build somebody in, but you need to realize that you've a little tiny brain that you're trying to tell this is still safe. So it's kind of slowly migrating that other person in, but bringing in all the other habit stacks, all the other things that they're used to, all those other cues that they're used to. Proximity is huge for supporting sleep. And it's one of those ones that's really hard to get your head around sometimes because it's like, okay, I need to put the baby back in the cot, but how do I keep myself close? Because they're looking for, it's one of those ones it's a bit of a dance in finding where's the level of, but proximity is huge because we're hardwired to be beside our babies and our babies are hardwired to look for us. So it's how do you make that scene look safe and work for you. Sidecars, I suppose, were one of the biggest kind of changes that came in. I know we used to pull the cot in, we took the side off the cot and made our bed bigger essentially with the cot. That worked for a little bit, but yeah, cots end up being fancy things sometimes. But proximity is
Nice
huge.
place to
It
store your
definitely
baby
makes,
blankets.
yeah, Absolutely, they're brilliant storage units. But it's, yeah, so habit stacking is massive, proximity is massive, and it's working on what's your baby's temperament. So working with, so does your baby like baths? If your baby likes a bath and that you know that calms them, work with it. If your baby hates the water and it's going to rile them up and you know that, then don't put the bath in and at the end of it. Baby massage.
Yeah.
Baby massage is massive before bedtime
Yes.
because it just brings everybody's system down. And I think one of the biggest key things there is it brings mom and dad's system down. The co-regulation bit is huge. And I know, and I'll honestly and openly say this, I've definitely gone into some bedtimes when my boys going, oh my God, just go to bed. You need time off parenting. You're like, I'm done. Parenting is, I've been on the go all day. I actually wanted to switch off, please. But those are the nights that are going to take longer because you go in with your heightened nervous system. And babies ride on our nervous system. So if you go in with that heightened nervous system, they're not manipulating you. They're not looking at you going, I'm going to wring this out for another while because they're looking at you going, you're up here over something. Something's making you anxious and stressed. Maybe I should stay there too. So that's what makes it harder for them to come down. Whereas if we can go in and just take those moments to kind of take the deep breaths and then lead into bedtime going, okay, do you know what? I'm going to throw out all expectations. If bedtime takes an hour, I'm here for an hour and just go in with that. You'll probably find it'll go smoother because your system is down here ready and open and waiting for them to kind of go, okay, I'm here, kiddo, what do you want? And then they find it easier to come to calm because you're down here on calm already. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And they
And the
they
other thing I would
know.
they know 100% they know.
Yeah. And I think like I definitely learned it on my second baby that when he was upset, like obviously a crying baby is upsetting to listen to, but like when he was
Yeah,
upset and I'd be upset and I was like, we are feeding off one another here, and I would
yeah,
like consciously slow my breathing down,
yeah,
and it would help him to calm. And I was like, literally, one nervous system.
yeah,
If I'm missing my baby is missing me. Um,
yeah. And that's it.
so
And it's huge. And I think even like that, if you took away nothing else but that this tiny human can't do this themselves. They need me to do this thinking for them, and throw all expectations out because there's nothing you can do to hasten that. You can't make that process happen any faster. Their brains will develop when they develop, and the fact that they need you to help them get there, you can't change that. So it's the showing up bit is, but showing up in the right capacity then, and that's how do I get my space to regulate? And that's a whole other, that could be a whole other podcast for you, Aoife. How do you find your space to regulate yourself, like finding that? And sometimes that's having that open and honest conversation within a partnership. I need half an hour actually before I go into bedtime, so you can do this bit of the day and go and take that half an hour long shower, or go and put the podcast in, or go for the walk, or go for just throw yourself on the bed so that you then come to bedtime going, I actually feel like I've had 10 minutes to myself. Okay, I'm ready to kind of do this. And the other thing there would be, what are your non-negotiables? Do you go into bedtime going, oh, I have this, and this to do? Well, is it easier then to do this, and this, and then go and do bedtime, and your brain is a little bit less kind of frantic about, I'm spending so much time lying here trying to get this child to sleep, and I've all these things to do. Sometimes it's actually looking at the practical kind of side of it and going, well, maybe if I hadn't this to do, and then I went in and did bedtime, that I'd actually feel a little bit more relaxed going into it myself. Mm.
yeah, and like having those, they're not difficult conversations. It's, would you mind putting a load of washing on while I put the kids to
Yeah,
bed? Or,
yeah,
whatever it is, so that it's just one less thing on
yeah,
your, like we were talking before we came on there about the tabs open in our brains. And
yeah,
how it's supposed to function. It's the same with your computer or your phone. If
yeah,
every single tab on it is open, it's not functioning at its best,
yeah,
and it's not going to be able to
yeah.
fulfill what we
No, the
need
system
from it.
eventually crashes, doesn't it? And you have to kind of reboot somewhere. So catching it ahead of the thing is actually, yeah. And it isn't a hard conversation. You're right. It's not. It's just kind of, I think sometimes we don't realize that we're getting to that point. I know I definitely can hit the wall before I realize, oh, that's what's going on. And that it's sometimes kind of slowing down and going, where am I in the scheme of how regulated am I myself?
Yeah. And like you know, I know everyone is very, very different. Like, as humans, we all have different temperaments. But
Mm.
especially if your partner kind of knows how to read you, I think that's really good as well. Like my partner would come in and he would say, like, there was a day there that he came in and he was like, "Why is there all this like actual rubbish on the ground?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I started clearing out those cupboards, um, and then there was something else. Like I can't even remember how it was that I got distracted." But like I'd have to, and he was like, "Aoife, you let's just like take it back a step. What tasks do you want to do today?" Because he'd actually come home early from work that day. Because usually I'd be like running around going, "Oh my God,
It's
I have
all
to like
done.
at least make the place look semi-presentable." But he came home early that day and he was like, "Right, what things do you really need to get done today? And let's prioritize them." Because he knows what I'm
Yeah.
know, and my mind is constantly like, 7,000 different
Going.
tabs
Yeah.
open. But
Yeah.
it's just knowing, and in the same way that we know our babies, for the most part,
Yeah.
hopefully our partners know
Yeah.
us and we know our partners. And,
Yeah.
even just making that call of, "Do you know what? I'll do bedtime tonight.
Yeah.
You're not, you're not in that space." And
Yeah.
giving you, or the opposite saying,
The
"I'm going to
opposite.
do
And you
this."
know what?
But you don't have to do your
Sometimes
shit
even
for
it
them.
is, yeah, and sometimes it is that realizing that when you were up here, so if you come into bedtime, you're okay, but it's going on and you're rising, then your partner comes in down here, not you both meeting up here. Like you need someone to come in and take
Yeah.
over down here nice and calm so that, that you're kind of playing off each other, that, you can kind of swap in and swap out. And yeah, it's reading that in each other. But that takes time as well. And I think like that parenting bit takes time, doesn't it? In realizing, oh, this is what, because you're figuring parenting out a lot of the time as you're going along, for the most part, you're.
Or for the whole part. um, Majella, I feel like we could just sit here and talk about this all
Oh,
day.
forever. Yeah.
As a last question,
Mm.
if you could sit beside every new parent who's awake at 3 a.m. with their baby, what would you want to say to them?
Oh, this one, I think this is your baby. I think is the first thing. There's no such thing as perfect, and just get rid of that notion. Drop guilt because there's enough things in life to actually make you feel guilty about. You're not breaking your baby. You've done nothing to break them. Like babies are hardwired to want you and need you, and it's a season, the night, and that's not to say that that's easy, but it like sleep does improve. It gets, it's this trough, peaks and troughs. But one of the biggest things I think that I wish I had kind of held sooner is that this is your baby. You know them best. Everybody will give you advice and their tuppence worth and what they feel you should be doing. And take what serves you and what doesn't kind of sit with you and what feels a bit like, just leave it. Because people pass comments and they, funny things they'll ask, is it a good baby and what way are you feeding? Don't know why it matters to people. It really doesn't. But they'll go off and you can still be sitting with that at 2 in the morning going, oh God, So I think people don't realize sometimes the impact of their words. So if something doesn't sit with you, just leave it go. I think you know your baby best and you'll figure it out, but there is no such thing as perfect. There really isn't. Yeah,
Really isn't. And I would
no,
and I would back that up by saying there's no such thing as the perfect child or the perfect parent.
no, no.
Most of the time, we find that the baby that we get and the child that we get is the perfect one for us, and we are the perfect
Absolutely.
parent for them.
Yeah,
As long as you're doing your best by them, you are being that perfect parent. You're
yeah,
being exactly who they need you to be. You don't
yeah,
need to be this insta-worthy parent. You
no,
just need to be worthy of
no.
your own little ones.
And I think actually even in that the context of even worrying about, am I doing it right? So that in itself is your answer that you're putting your best into. Like if you're worried about getting it right, you're getting it right because, you're worried about doing the right thing by them. So like it's a roller coaster, isn't it? It really is a roller coaster of a.
It absolutely is. A roller coaster is about right.
Hmm.
Yeah, because there are ups and downs, but uh,
Yeah,
half the time it's terrifying. But when you look back on it,
yeah,
you've actually
yeah,
probably really enjoyed it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And it's finding the moments, isn't it? Yeah, it is.
yeah. Majella, it was so, so lovely to have
Thanks
you
so
on
much.
today. Would you like to let our listeners know
Well,
where they can find you if they'd like to reach out for support or to book in with you?
yeah, perfect. So I'm on Instagram. So it's tiny tummies underscore little dreamers. Or I have website is tinytummies.ie. And I am actually currently looking for parents of toddlers, Aoife, that would be struggling in challenges of nighttime
Yeah.
sleep. And I'm doing interviews with them for a program that I'm creating. So if there is any mummies that are mummies of toddlers that are looking for, I'm doing a Q&A at the end of each kind of interview session. So yeah, but all that is up on my Instagram or through the website. And yeah, we're more than
That
happy
is great, and
to set
I
anyone.
will share that also. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, so thank you so, so much.
Thanks, Aoife.
And
Thanks for the opportunity.
not at all. So, as always, if you loved this episode, I would love to hear back from you. Any feedback, good or bad, is always taken in the spirit that it's given. Hit follow so you don't miss the next episode and leave a review if you're feeling especially generous, helping my feral corner of the internet grow and hopefully cancel out some of that silly sleep training and ferberizing, worst verb ever. I silly talk. And if today has felt a little bit heavy, maybe you're feeling a little bit guilty for things you know, you've done in terms of sleep with your own children, please remember you're not broken. You're responding and you're responding in a loving way. Motherhood is wild, it is feral, it is crazy, and you are allowed to be each of those things in it. So, until next time, everybody, see you next time.